Are you buying or selling a home? Having a realtor can make buying or selling real estate much easier. HomeGain can recommend and connect you with the top real estate agent in your area. Call 866-512-7918 or visit homegain.com. Did you know, according to a HomeGain nationwide survey, that having a realtor working for you improves your chances by 50% of getting your home sold? HomeGain can recommend and connect you with the top real estate agent in your area. Call 866-512-7918 or visit homegain.com. Are you or someone you know looking to buy or sell a home? When you use a HomeGain Realtor to buy or sell a home, you can get $150. Visit homegain.com and click on the Promo 150 banner at the top of the page to get started. Compare HomeGain Realtors and choose your favorite. Complete your home purchase or sale transaction with a HomeGain Realtor, and HomeGain will pay you $150. Get started today by going to homegain.com.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Washington, D.C. Metro with local expert Ryan Sloper. Now, here's Ryan.
Welcome back, Washington, D.C. Metro, to Ryan Sloper's Real Estate Radio. I'm joined today by Louis Cammarosano with HomeGain. Quick reminder, Real Estate Radio is designed to build the Washington, D.C. Metro's market by giving you good free advice. If you ever have any questions, concerns, or real estate needs, or whether it's credit-related, finance-related, reach out to us at 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. Before we went to break, I was talking about the great opportunity that's out there right now in the 5-year adjustable rate mortgage. Now, I know a lot of people, they've gotten so scared away from adjustable rate mortgages from the boom that we had where everybody was put into ARMs and then their actual ARM adjusted, and then they're in a situation where they're like, oh my gosh, I can't afford this payment. Well, for the people that understand it, and for people out there that are looking to find a great option and solution for someone that's only going to live in the home for maybe 5 to 7 to 8 years, this is a great option. I mean, and what's happening is ARMs are at a huge discount right now. And the reason for that is because a lot of the times on Wall Street, they kind of look at what their future return is going to be. And with all this inflation that's going to be inevitable, the 30-year is not being discounted as much as the actual 5-year ARM. The 30-year is more susceptible to changes in inflation rates than the 5-year ARM is, and that's why it's being discounted by a huge amount right now. As a matter of fact, there's almost a 1.23% spread between the 30-year fixed and the 5-year adjustable rate mortgage. Now, what that translates into, I used a $300,000 mortgage on a 5-year ARM versus a 30-year fixed. And that's about a monthly mortgage savings of about $211 per month. Now, that's huge. Now, not only is that huge, that sometimes will allow somebody to buy maybe another $25,000 or $50,000 more of a house if they didn't elect to just take that savings. Louis, I mean, there is a lot of people out there that, just are just not even paying any attention to this, the 5-year ARMs, that it's hovering around 3%. But for people that are only going to be in their home for, and the reason why I say 5 to 8 to 10 years is because a lot of the times most of the ARMs are tied to the Treasury, which only can adjust no more than one time in any given year. Most of the time it can't go up by any more than 2%. So if you're at 3 and it adjusts to 5, it's still, it's still manageable, and a lot of the time you pay down by a decent amount in that period. So it makes sense to do that.
Ryan, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
During the market, are consumers kind of turned off by the term ARM, because that's really what kind of caused the whole subprime crisis and the whole mortgage issue?
100% yes. 100% yes. If you say ARM, they're like, I don't want that. And then you have to ask the question, well, why do you not want that?
Or the question is, what are your objectives? And maybe an ARM fits them.
Exactly. Well, that's typical, because when I sit down with my clients, the first thing I do is I typically go through, okay, what are going to be your plans short term and long term? You know what I mean? Because you need to find out what the overall picture is. Do they plan on having kids and growing their family and moving into a bigger home? I mean, you need to know all this because you have to make sure you're packaging them into the right type of mortgage. So for somebody, let's say that it's a first-time home buyer that plans on, a couple that just newly got married but plans on growing their family. So they move into a townhome, but they know they want to have 2 or 3 kids. They want to move on in about 5 to 7 years. This is a perfect product for that maybe first-time home buyer that at this point has maybe saved up some money. There's a lot of people out there have been renting for the last 4 or 5 years that maybe have a 20% down payment at this point. The 5-year ARM is a great option for them. I mean, I just read the numbers for a $300,000 loan. You're looking at a difference between that and the 30-year fix is $211 a month. That now, $211 a month, that may not sound like that much right now considering the gas prices and everything else we're paying, but you could afford another 2 or 3 fill-ups in your gas tank, or you could afford, going to the grocery store another one time a month and having that money to do that at your disposal, or putting that money in your bank.
Well, or you just compare it against, that might make the rent versus buy more attractive.
It absolutely does, and I really wanted to bring this up today because I know that, this is just, when you're talking about close to 3%, you can literally, I think that there's still some banks out there that you can borrow money, or actually, sorry, the savings rate is somewhere you could probably get around 1% or a little bit over that. So you could, you literally, when you have, you're trying to save up on a 1% and you're paying 3% on the other, you're literally have like a 2% difference in that. It's incredible. Historically, we have not really ever seen this.
So how do you sell that? If you have a customer, are you successful in steering them towards a product that makes sense for them, or do you end up having to get them something else because they're convinced they don't want the ARM?
Most of the time, by the time I sit down and I break down all the numbers and I say, look, this is what you're looking at on a 30-year fix, this is what you're looking at on a 5-year ARM. Even if, let's just say that life happens and something changes or alters the path, most of the time, when there's such a substantial difference in payment, they will go with the cheaper option. The thing is that you have to educate and you have to help them understand why it's the better thing for their situation, and not just they just assume that, oh, it's a 30-year fix. My parents always told me. That's the answer you always get. My parents or my friends or my neighbors, they've always told me that you should just go into a 30-year fix no matter what, and that is the absolute worst advice you can get, because it's not the smartest decision if you plan on moving in 3 to 5 to 7 years and you go into this loan.
Well, but Ryan, that may be the sentiment of why there's less demand for housing, because people who lost their house probably tell people who are looking to buy a house, you don't want to do it.
Exactly. You don't want to take an ARM. It's either you take a 30-year fixed or don't do it.
Or they'll tell them you don't want to buy a house. Sure. Look what happened to me.
Yep. And just to give you a little bit of a personal story, Lewis, I bought my house back in 2003. I did a 3-year adjustable rate mortgage. This is when I just started into the mortgage business and I just came out of college. I'm like, you know what? It was a 3-year adjustable rate mortgage, so I have a first and a second. So on my first, I started out at 4.5%. Okay? I understood the way this loan was going to work, and I understood that I was going to stay in my house longer than 3 years. But I was willing to take those odds because I was at such a low interest rate to begin with.
Right.
So I said, all right, 4.5%, and I'm tied to the LIBOR, which is the London Interbank Offering Rate. So that index is what my loan is now tied to. So we went from 4.5. 3 years later, first adjustment, it went from 4.5, it went to 6. Then it went from 6 to 6.5. It went from 6.5 to 7. Make a long story short, I'm now at 2.375%. That's what I'm paying right now. Do you think I'm complaining now?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And that's because I understood what I was doing. And for people that don't plan for the future, you can't understand and see that. But most of these people could have saved the difference, or they should have never have bought that house. They bought the house back in the boom because on an interest only 3 or 5 year ARM, so that they could afford $100,000 more than what they should have to begin with.
But Ryan, most people, and this is the problem, no matter how smart they are, their experience in getting mortgages and buying a home is very limited. It's a once or twice in a lifetime thing, so they don't know much other than what they've been told. It's if somebody lost money in the stock market, they say, no, you don't want to put money in the stock market because I lost money. Well, that's not really, that's one person's point of view. There's plenty of money to be made in the stock market, and it does make sense for people to buy houses, but if they listen to somebody who lost money in the housing market, that's their point of reference. They're not in the housing market. They don't talk to mortgage professionals. They don't talk to real estate agents. They don't know.
Yeah, and that's the whole premise of this radio show, Lewis, is that we're trying to put information out there that is actually relevant and timely and educational, because
well, what I like about your show, Ryan, just to plug your show, is you're not always saying now's the best time to buy a home. You have to get a mortgage right now.
Right.
You're breaking it down by the geographic area that you're serving, and also basing on the facts and circumstances of the potential customer.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know what? Not and I do, and I'm glad you said that, because not everybody is cut out to buy a home. I mean, I had not too long ago a couple come to me, and they were kind of on the fringe, and I had to sit down with them and say, well, look, it's not just a matter of paying your mortgage payment. You also have, you've got to furnish the home, you have the utilities, you have everything else.
Upkeep.
Yeah, upkeep, and I made them go through and kind of itemize out things, and I said, at the end of the day, you can get approved for this loan because you've got great credit scores, you've got some money saved up. But do you want to kind of live paycheck to paycheck with your mortgage?
Right. Now, a few years back, the mantra was everyone has to have a home. You have to buy a house. You're going to be left behind. And now it seems to be that buying a home is a mistake. Neither of those positions are true. You don't always have to have a home, and it's not always a bad time to buy a house either. It's
a great opportunity for someone every day of the year. It's just a matter of where they are at that point in their life. You know what I mean? And
never everybody should buy a house, or right now no one should buy a house.
Exactly. And you know what I'm saying right now? It's a tremendous opportunity for someone out there. You may be listening. All I can advise you is, we just talked about the 5-year adjustable rates mortgage hovering around 3%, depending upon your qualifications. Even a 30-year fixed at 4.5%, it makes sense for someone. We're coming up on a break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up the show. Thank you for listening to Real Estate Radio.